And we are starting our second panel of the morning with Luisa Zargani, Milan Bureau Chief at WWD, our media partner for the event. Luisa, welcome on stage.
Hello, welcome everyone. I'm sure we're all fired up with coffee now. So welcome everyone to today's panel discussion on how to measure the level of visibility we have about the sustainable performance of clothing placed on the market. You can improve what you can measure. And that is why it's so important to take action based on targets and indicators to monitor progress. The objective of today's session is to discuss recommendations for key performance indicators on traceability and transparency that industry actors can use for products, materials, and processes. The indicators have been developed with the advisory board of the Sustainability Pledge. So our panelists today are all members of the advisory board, and I'm pleased to introduce them. Christian Hudson, Lead Global Textile Transparency Governance, Deutsche Gesellschaft für International Zusammenarbeit, I hope it's okay, who is online. Rishesh Rajan, I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. I'm so sorry. Founder and CGO of Trace, welcome. Ana Ibarra-Diaz, Head of Traceability in Inditex. Welcome. And Ashley Gill, Chief Strategy Officer, Textile Exchange. Welcome. Just to explain, the advisory board consists of 25 members from 17 countries around the world, representing different public and private actors across the value chain ecosystem. And so you are all members of the advisory board. So let me first turn to Christian Hudson, Lead Global Textile Transparency Governance, GIZ International Services. GIZ is the German Agency for International Cooperation, is an active member of the advisory board. The advisory board reaffirmed that the characteristic of valuable transparency and traceability KPIs are measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, clear, comparable, and cost-effective, as well as specific. Christian, can you comment on these characteristics, also in the context of GIZ's ongoing project? Why KPIs are needed, and how could be the basis for incentives, please?
Yes, hello everybody, and I'm very sorry, genuinely very sorry not to be there in person. I can speak on these questions, and I'm very happy to be talking about these questions because KPIs are incredibly important. So I see KPIs as the key tool by which you can improve performance in transparency and traceability. The way in which you can judge and incentivize that performance, whether it's implicit or explicit. And why does that matter? Because traceability and transparency are essential for making progress on sustainability. And the one way you could see them is as traceability and transparency as the strong men at the bottom of a human pyramid of acrobats of the circus. It's these guys at the bottom who are supporting the whole sustainability decisions at the top. And the KPIs are the way that in advance we can look at that human pyramid and judge whether it's going to be strong enough to support the decisions we're making. So if we were lucky enough to be a brand investing 600 million in a purchase contract with sustainability improvements in the supply chain, we would want to know, can we trust the information on which we're making that decision? And that's a bit what KPIs can do for us. So it's looking at these strong men and saying, how do we judge they're strong enough? Is it from the size of their arms, the length of their legs, or the width of their moustaches? And obviously, in that case, it's the moustaches which are important. But in real life, there's some pretty tricky decisions to get into about choice of KPIs. And that's why I think it's fantastic that Unicy and my fellow advisory board members from around the world have been working on these questions to try to get to the right answers. To give you a bit of a consideration, what has to be taken into account. First, you need to think about what is the sustainability decision to be made. So is it about payment of living wages, or is it about improving manufacturing efficiency in the value chain? You need different bits of information, obviously. And then that's your second question. What information is really important? And then the third question you have is the KPI question. How do you judge the quality and reliability and availability of that information? And once you've got to that point, then you can start thinking about how you use those KPIs to try to improve the situation. Unfortunately, people have thought about this before, and this is where the SMART acronym comes in. It is really important that the KPIs are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, obviously, and time limited, and comparable, clear, and cost effective. So on cost effective, you could say, we've got this beautiful KPI, but it's impossible to get the data for it without huge expense. That's not a good KPI because no one's going to be able to use it. And to answer this question about how this fits in with my personal interest and some of my work at the moment in GIZ, we're looking to try to design the incentive structures that would reward improvements in traceability and transparency and data availability. And what would you reward on the basis of? You'd probably reward or incentivize on the basis of the KPIs. So if someone is able to give you the information you want, they'd be the people to put on your preferred supplier list. But equally, I've got a background in policymaking. It's KPIs which are going to be the basis for judgment about compliance for some aspects of some legislation, whether it's corporate reporting or disclosures or potentially due diligence legislation. So it's incredibly important for driving the whole system of sustainability that we get KPIs right. And I'm very happy that we're looking at it, very happy everyone here is listening in, and happy that we can take this further in future years to get it spot on.
Thank you, Christian, also for the visual representation. That was very helpful. So now, Mr. Rajan, founder and chief growth officer of TrustTrace. TrustTrace submitted a pledge to UNEC's call to action. Can you please highlight the traceability and transparency KPIs you have indicated in your pledge and how you're monitoring them? Which technologies can be considered as good enablers to collect this data and measure it?
Thanks for that, Louisa. So basically, when we started TrustTrace, we didn't know what really to chase, right, and what to possibly solve. We just knew we wanted to create some impact. And thanks to this group, I think we're getting a lot more clarity, right? The role of a technology player here is to be an enabler, right? So we connect the different players, predominantly, let's say, the brands and the suppliers and the other ecosystem players. So the pledge that we took initially was that whatever we learn, we will sort of try and share that with the larger ecosystem players. So as part of that, for the last 3 years, we've launched 3 playbooks, which calls out ecosystem players, also our competitors. And I mean, we have got contributions from our partners like Textile Exchange that Ashley here represents, right? And where the industry is going. So that everyone is able to adopt and get onto the platform. The second aspect, of course, is that we'll continuously improve the solutions that we're giving. How do we sort of use technology that is available today and keep adding to what we've already done, right? So in terms of, if I look at the KPIs, we said we will try and onboard as many of the suppliers as possible, share a lot of that data with the ecosystem players and the brands to start with, right? So that they can start measuring where they are. So 3 years back when we possibly came on board, we had maybe about 5,000 suppliers on our platform. Today we have about 45,000 factories on the platform, right? And many of them at different levels of maturity. So we need to understand that there has to be, we need to cater to every one of them, right? So the platform cannot be really advanced, or it caters to that audience as well as people who are just getting started, right? So that was the first big KPI that we had. The second one, of course, was to try and build and bring more and more ecosystem players so that we can collaborate. I think we've come very, very far with that. We work with, again, I would say, a lot of the ecosystem players, the risk database players, PLM and ERP players, right? So because they hold a lot of the required data today, internal systems with the brands and suppliers. So the idea is that we make our platforms as open as possible, while still ensuring that confidential information is still kept aside for the different brands. So we need to keep that in mind. And of course, today, if we look at how technology is improving, I'm sure all of you are using a lot of ChatGPT and so on. It solves a lot of problems very easily, but also creates other headaches. So we need to be very wary of that. Yeah.
But so in this case, technology is really a useful tool. So it's all good in this case. Or are you cautious?
I think the advancements that we can do, I mean, the problems that we've had is that how do we sort of improve the quality of data?
Okay.
How do we sort of make it easier for suppliers to sort of share data, right? I think with the advent of this specific technology, it's going to make it very, very fast and very easy. So you can see the acceleration that is going to happen over the next 12 months. We don't need to change the way we do stuff today to actually sort of start collecting data. You don't need to make changes in the processes drastically, which is what we used to do before. But I think with the advent of this kind of technology, I think we can really accelerate data collection, look at the quality of data, and also help with reporting, et cetera, which is what is needed for, let's say, the regulators, for the brands, and different sort of compliance players.
Well, thank you very much for this. Now let me turn to Ana Ibarra-Diaz, Head of Traceability at Inditex, a major company that submitted 2 pledges to UNEC's call to action. Can you tell us why you decided to join this call to action? And how did you participate? How did participation in the Sustainability Pledge inform and support your strategy and action on traceability and transparency? Can you highlight the KPIs you have indicated in your pledge and how you're monitoring them?
Sure. Thank you, Luisa. To give some context, we joined this initiative because we were fully aware that collaboration is essential to achieve meaningful improvements in the traceability landscape. In Inditex, we have a strong track record in terms of traceability. We have been working since many years in the tools and the processes to enable the identification of all the factories involved in the manufacturing of our products. We also have a strong commitment in the use of preferred materials that should be certified using the approved standards. Furthermore, traceability is one of the key topics for our stakeholders, as is shown in our traceability matrix. Considering this, in 2020, we decided to integrate our vision and management of traceability by creating an independent area that is at the service of the rest of the sustainability teams. At that moment, we were involved in the release of the recommendation number 46. So for us, it was very natural at that moment to increase our level of commitment by endorsing the call to action with 2 topics that were very, very important at that moment and still being very important today, that were to update our traceability requirements for our supply chain and also to evolve the digital traceability ecosystem. In general, for us, participating in projects that has as an objective to reinforce the traceability in the industry is a strategic line by itself. We need a common approach to traceability to continue supporting the reduce of the impacts of our industry. And this call to action is provides a relevant platform in this regard. How this initiative supporting our traceability strategy? This initiative, this multi-stakeholding forum in which, where we are right now, is very important to raise awareness about the traceability challenges that we are facing, and helps a lot to drive the definition of large-scale solution. Just with that gives us a lot of support for our traceability strategy. We can find a wide range of platforms and standards in the traceability landscape, but there's a lack of interoperability between them, and it's been a problem for their effectiveness. So I think that forum like this, in which all the different actors in the industry can discuss this challenge and other challenges, are very, very important. No, and in one of our pledges we have committed is to impulse the interoperability between systems, platforms, and standards. Also in this pledge, we have committed to improve our internal traceability system in order to help our suppliers to fulfill with our requirements. This is a never-ending task and is based in a constant communication and supporting with suppliers. The other pledge was related to increase and update our traceability requirements. We set a goal that in 2022 do a major update our requirements, and we did it with a huge effort in terms of communication and training to the suppliers. In a nutshell, I would say that the participation in this initiative had led us to be part of this group that supports our strategy by the impulse of large common scale solutions and by giving visibility to our stakeholders about the relevance that traceability has for our company. Okay. And in terms of KPIs, I mean, we have defined several, but I would like to highlight a few of them. If we talk about traceability requirements, I think that the most relevant KPI is the number of suppliers trained. No? Training is essential to ensure that our supply chain understands our requirements and therefore they comply with them. We have given capacity building sessions to more than 1,000 suppliers in 35 countries in 2022 and more than 300 suppliers in 20 countries in 2023. We did it online, retrieving information from our internal platforms by weekly reports, and also asking the attendants to register in in-person trainings in order to be able to do a reliable, comparable monitoring. Another KPIs, if we talk about the evolution of the digital ecosystem, I think that two important KPIs are, first one is how do we monitor the number of improvements in our internal system. As I mentioned before, we have an internet platform. We have been working in relevant changes for the past 2 years. We have included 26 new processes to be traced, and last year we also include 2 main new features. And another important KPI for us is how do we monitor our collaboration with the industry. For example, we measure the number of working session groups in which we have participated, and in 2023 were more than 60. And we also monitor the number of new technologies and platforms that we tested. That number was 7 last year. To be fully transparent, we are considering in modifying these KPIs because they are like more quantitative, and maybe it would be better to include more insightful data points in them. And finally, we have something pending, and after the work conducted by the advisory board, we want to explore an alignment in our pledges with the new defined KPIs.
Thank you very much, very comprehensive. So now Ashley Gill, Chief Strategy Officer of Textile Exchange, welcome. So Textile Exchange submitted 2 pledges to UNEC's call to action. Can you also highlight the traceability and transparency KPIs you have indicated in your pledge and how you're monitoring them? And which KPIs enable the outcomes we desire? And what are the learnings drawn from your commitment to the Sustainability Pledge call to action?
Thank you. Textile Exchange sits in a relatively unique position because we have operated a chain of custody standard or several chain of custody standards for a number of years that were set up to verify practices at the raw material level and then trace that material through to the final product. And so in a way, we've been working on traceability for many years already. I think our first standard was launched in 2002. And being part of the Sustainability Pledge was an opportunity for us to look at and explore how our certification system, how our standard system needed to evolve to be an active participant within a larger ecosystem of traceability, which is something that it wasn't really designed to do. It was really designed to help companies make better decisions about the materials they use, and also for us to understand what changes, what practices lead to better outcomes at the raw material level. And so the initial work that the pledges that we were focused on, there were 2 of them that, as you mentioned. The first was our work on eTrackIt, which is really to look at a more dynamic and technology-driven solution for what we call our transaction certificates, which is the tool that we use to actually track the material from one supplier in the chain to another. And so the main KPIs that we were really interested in for this particular project, at the moment we have within our existing certification system over 75,000 certified sites. Obviously not all of them are going to be able to transition over to a technology platform immediately. As Rishikesh mentioned, it is a challenge always to find the right level of applicability for those types of sites. And so what we wanted to learn with that particular project was how we could interact more directly with a technology provider, how we could include a technology provider within our system. And the learning with that was that in order for that to really work, the ecosystem of data, the data quality and data integrity of what we were using throughout the entire system needed to match what we were getting with a technology provider so that information could flow back and forth. Otherwise, you kind of get stuck with material that can only be traced using one technology platform rather than being able to be a bit more dynamic and interoperable. And so we're looking into how we can expand that and allow more of those technology platforms to be part of that system to allow us to kind of operate more in an interoperable way between technology providers, between different sources of information, so that information about certified material can kind of flow alongside the traceability information that everyone needs. The other thing that the other project that we looked at was our geospatial information system, which is what we're using to monitor impacts on the ground at the farm level. And so this was actually a technology called ArcGIS that we have implemented with 400 farms that are certified to our responsible wool standard or one of the accompanying alpaca and mohair standards. And this tool is actually used to identify the polygon data or the map of where the farms actually are, which can be used then to overlay with information about deforestation, about access to water, those types of impacts. And what we have seen is definitely the point that Anna mentioned about training is really important because we wanted those farms to use that system themselves, to use that system directly. And so we provided free access to the farms, and we also provided free training for all of those farms to be able to input their own information that was then validated by the certification body. And Obviously, having training in place, what we've learned so far is having that training in place is really the difference maker of the quality of information, the how participative the groups actually are. But I think one of the other KPIs that is harder to track or harder to see is how those sustainability decisions are made, not just at the top of the pyramid with brands and retailers, but how sustainability decisions can be made throughout the entire value chain. And what we've seen with the GIS, or the Geospatial Information System, is that by giving those farms access to their own information, they hadn't really ever seen the overlay of the farms and the other natural system impact that was occurring within that landscape. They were actually able to identify specific initiatives, specific interventions that could be done to address things like land conversion, promoting better grazing systems, that type of thing. And so I think an important part is that we ensure that the KPIs that we're tracking don't just inform the decisions that are being made in the offices, but also the decisions that are being made in the facilities where that change needs to happen. Those producers can be empowered to use that information in ways that not only benefit the whole value chain, but also benefit those producers themselves really directly.
When we first met, you said that you grew up in a farm, so I was wondering if that also kind of helped you in your path. Is that something?
Yes, I grew up on a cotton farm in Texas, and I always wanted to get as far away from cotton as I could because I spent a lot of time in the field, but then it has been kind of following me around. I did the Peace Corps, and I ended up on a cotton farm again, and then I came home and found an organization which at the time was called Organic Exchange that was really interested in promoting the connection and the increased transparency between the farm and brands and retailers. And it is very true that the language that farmers speak and the language that brands and retailers speak is very different. And so these types of tools, this type of traceability and transparency ecosystem allows more of that translation, I think, between these two groups. And the other point of all of this work, really, I think it's important to remind ourselves that the intention of all of this work is not to reduce risk for companies. It's not for us to be able to sell more product. It is actually so that we can take accountability and responsibility for the impact that our industry has on the world and on people. And that kind of transparency is able to be a catalyst for transformation as long as we say, we're measuring the right thing and giving the information to the people who have the responsibility and ability to make those changes.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I think the time is up, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Luisa, Chief Milan Bureau WWD, for moderating the panel discussion on, the importance of measuring the level of traceability and transparency in the industry and how to do it. And thank you so much to all our panelists. And now, moving to the next panel discussion. This is going to be about harnessing the potential of innovation for traceability and transparency. It is about the blockchain pilots and digital product passport updates. And I'm very pleased of welcoming on stage our moderator, Carlo Cici, partner and head of sustainability at the European House, Ambrosetti. Thank you, Carlo, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I invite my panelists to join me to the stage, please. Here, thank you, with an applause, Rossella and Marco. Here we are. So, thank you, and welcome to the fourth session on innovation for transparency and traceability. And it's really a big pleasure for me being here because I strongly believe that innovation is the most relevant ally for sustainability. And second topic is that today in this panel we will talk about innovation in a really concrete way, because we are going to present the results of the latest 3 projects completed within the UNEC blockchain platform. And then we are going to share experiences, opportunities, and challenges on digital product passport implementation. My name is Carlo Cici. I'm head of sustainability and partner of the European House Ambrosetti. We are both a think tank and a management consulting. We launched 3 years ago the Venice Sustainability Fashion Forum, and nowadays we are working on the 3rd edition. And I'm really proud about it because it put together brands and suppliers in order to talk together about how to find solution on sustainability. Everybody knows that we have a really tight agenda, amazing. And so I invite you, all my panelists, to be very careful with the timing, because we are the last session before the lunch, obviously. So we can start talking about the 3 case histories. And for each of them, I have the only one question, that is, can you share in 3 minutes your experience within the UNEC platform and the main outcome and impact? Let's start from Seyhan Akhtemur, Chief Commercial Officer at Soktash, and she will talk about the regenerative cotton shirt and T-shirt use cases initiated by Soktash, from farming up to retailing and then sold in Stella McCartney shops. Please, Seyhan.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank for the opportunity to share our experience directly from field here. It's a great honor to be here, actually. We have unique proposition as a Soktash. We are both farmer and fabric producer. So while we were reducing our environmental footprint through good farming practices and sustainable textile production, we collaborated with UNEC to enhance traceability and transparency and trace our regenerative cotton from farm to shell, and related Stella McCartney garments are just over there on display. As Soktash, we believe in that without traceability, we cannot make credible sustainability claims. And furthermore, we believe in that the sustainability is enabler for all other initiatives. And furthermore, tightening regulations and increasing conscious buying decisions puts traceability and transparency top of our priority, but it's a very complex issue because scope is not limited to our own operations. To achieve industry-wide sustainability, all partners and all systems should work together for seamless data exchange. I'm so happy to say that the pilots we had demonstrated the blockchain potential to addressing many of today's challenges. Blockchain can consolidate all fragmented data in one source and making the information visible and accessible by all parties. Furthermore, it can also provide near real-time trustworthy sustainability information and product origin. It's already mentioned several times here, fostering connection and collaboration is key to enhance traceability. And we recognized during our pilots that it was really important to have alignment and share goals within the value chain partners. And the major lack of, let's say, the challenge we had, I want to also mention about this, was the lack of unstandardized language. I'm just wrapping up.
Thank you.
the standard language was really a problem. We experienced that without unified data, end-to-end traceability is not possible. And then uploading of the documents were manual during the pilots, which is fine during the pilots, but considering amount of the trade transaction during the real world, I think for future it will be good to have automated data transfers from existing systems. So while wrapping up, I just want to add that it was a great, great pleasure and exciting to be part of this pilots and assessing UNEC methodology for more transparent and transparent activities and products.
Thank you. Thank you, Seiyan. Thank you. And move to Thomas Jennings, Traceability Coordinator at Batten Cotton. And we will talk about the use, a project conducted in Samarkand, cotton cluster, which marked the first yarn certified better cotton in the country. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I dive into it, quick thanks to the UNEC team, to Mr. Sultanov and Uz Textile Prom for their support with Better Cotton in Uzbekistan, and also to the Better Cotton team in Uzbekistan for their hard work. Better Cotton's mission is to ensure that cotton communities survive and thrive while ensuring that we're protecting and restoring the environment. My role specifically is looking at traceability. So once that better cotton is harvested, where is it going on its journey through to the retail brand or to the end product? So to talk about the pilot that we were involved in 2022, as was spoken about earlier, there was a drastic or an announcement about all the labor reforms that had taken place in Uzbekistan. So Better Cotton recognized a potential or an opportunity to move into the country to develop a program. The rules or the contingency around that was ensuring that any better cotton that was harvested in Uzbekistan was fully segregated and traceable from the farm to the end product. At the time, we didn't have a traceability platform available to facilitate this, which is where the collaboration with the UNEC team came into play. So this work involved working with one specific organization or cluster. And again, just to remind what a cluster is, it's an organization that operates both farming practices and also manufacturing processes. So they're growing the cotton and then also adding value to it through the supply chain. So we worked with this cluster. We trained them not only to how to handle the better cotton product, but also how to enter information onto the supply chain. This was a continual process. It's new processes that these supply chain organizations are having to learn, so we're having to continually support them through both online and in-person training to make sure they understood effectively what they needed to do. Once this organization was given a better cotton license, so the cotton that was grown was recognized as better cotton, it then flowed through their internal supply chains, and we were able to then track it as they put information onto that system, be it not only data, but documentation to confirm the data that was being entered. The project actually concluded last month and was a great success, and we're now moving these Uzbek clusters, so not only the one involved in the project, but other Uzbek clusters, onto our global traceability solution that Better Cotton has now developed on the Better Cotton platform. And we're now seeing not only in Uzbekistan, but cotton from around the world being entered onto there, which we can now trace through the supply chain. Just a few learnings that I think would be good and useful to share. First is that we need to have clear sets of rules that the supply chain has to be following, not only at one point in the supply chain, but across the whole supply chain. We need to have a clear digital platform in which information can be tracked along the supply chain, and again, it works for everybody in the supply chain, not just one organization. Effective assurance processes to ensure that not only is their data being entered, but we have confidence that it's reflecting the reality of what is being entered. And then finally, it was touched on in the last session, training. Training is so key. We can't just assume that this knowledge is going to be automatically understood. That new principles, new ideas, we need to take time to make sure that all of the supply chain is onboarded and understands what they need to be doing in relation to traceability.
Thank you, Thomas. Very good, very good. And now I move to Rossella Ravagli, Sustainability Director, Armani Group, and we'll present the result about the project for men's dress, complying with fully traced from raw materials to the point of purchase. Please.
Thank you, Carlo, and thank you to all the UNEC team, starting from Maria Teresa. Okay, about our pilot, start from 2022, but we conclude our project in 2023, so we apply a backward traceability approach in this case. The pilot was a very good occasion, the opportunity to demonstrate and validate all the traceability regarding this type of collection that is named Eucalyptic collection because it's a men dress made by blended virgin wool and lyocell fiber. So we trace all the value chain, starting from raw material to the purchase of point of products, and complying with all social and environmental standards, and use chemical best practices. And at the end, we prepared also a claim that was supported by documentary evidences. So it was for sure a very good experience to start a process of traceability. We also saw that it was important to put in place any synergies with the digital product passport, because on the same time we launched a project on digital product passport, so it's very important to work together on this. This is a pilot project, so I want to share that it's fundamental to scaling up.
Yeah.
And the challenge was related to the data, the collection of data, especially because in our case was a backward traceability approach, but anyway, data collection was a challenge for sure. And also the higher number of stakeholders involved, so many departments inside of the company, starting from sustainability, but also R&D department, production, IT, quality, and for external suppliers. So due to the high number of stakeholders, this process required the process of training and coaching required a great efforts in this case. But from the other side, was a very good opportunity to increase the access to the more reliable information, so to improve the quality of the information, to enforce the sustainability claims, and also to increase and to improve the communication process B2B and B2C. So in terms of the impact on sustainability strategy, as we know that traceability and transparency are the driver for the sustainability strategy, and the technology is an accelerator and the solution to achieve the sustainability development goals.
Very good, thank you very much. So talking about digital product passport, let's move to the last speaker, Marco Volpini, R&D Senior Software Engineer at ExtraRed, that is member of the Cyprus.2 consortium. So I have two questions for you. And first of all, what is the modus operandi of Cyprus consortium?
Okay, so let's say the main objective of the Cyprus.2 project is to deploy and validate at scale in real-life scenarios digital product.
I can hear.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. It's to deploy and validate at scale in real-life scenarios a digital product passport system. Okay. Now there are different initiatives that are building or has already built a digital product passport system, but these, let's say, these systems are not interoperable. Okay, they are like silos data space. While the target of the Cyprus.2 consortium is to build an interoperable data space for digital product passport that integrates with the existing data space, and possibly we will reuse as much as possible the legacy software that is already present in companies for handling the products. And so the problem that we are trying to fix, to solve, is not a technological problem, but is a data interoperability problem. Okay? The main challenge is to have an agreement between all the industries on a common digital product passport system, a common model that is compliant with the European regulation and at the same time is enough flexible to, let's say, have space for sector-specific data. And well, there is also a special focus for, let's say, small and medium enterprises because those enterprises that does not have the possibility to host software, deploy it, and maintain. And so another objective is to have some digital tools deployed in the cloud to issue DPP and managing them that will be accessible for those that does not have a DPP system. And the project is still in its infancy. We are not starting from scratch. We have the documents that are coming as an output from the Surpass1 project in terms of, let's say, user stories, the first version of user stories, draft version of system architecture. And then we have also 5 expert working groups that are responsible to, let's say, start a feedback loop with wider audience than the one of the consortium itself. This is, let's say, in extreme synthesis, how the consortium is working.
Very good. Another short question, because we know that you have 6 next pilot projects in your pipeline. Can you tell something about it? Can you explain it?
Yeah, sure. So we have 6 textile pilots, okay? And let's say each pilot has its own ecosystem, but they are more or less organized as following, with a pilot leader, a number of business partners that in the context of the pilot will issue a digital product passport, and then some downstream air operators that will have to apply a sustainable strategy on this product. And each pilot must have a business-to-business data exchange, must validate some business-to-business data exchange. So basically, traceability and transparency will be, let's say, at the very heart of each pilot, because DPP as a system and as a model will be validated with respect to its capacity to enable traceability and transparency, both in terms to the end consumer and in terms of, let's say, business-to-business data exchanges between economic operator, like the manufacturer, and the downstream operators. And of course, the focus of the digital product passport is not the upstream value chain, it is the downstream value chain. So mostly we will be validating traceability for when a product reaches its end of life, and then some sustainable strategy needs to be applied to it and reapply it. But still, the upstream value chain is still of interest for a digital product passport, because from there it is coming all the data that is needed to craft it at first. So also this will be validated. Strictly speaking about the textile pilots, we will be also testing, let's say, we will validate some air strategies specific for each pilot. And then we will have also various pilot testing the small and medium enterprises tools that are deployed in the cloud.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you so much. Very interesting. Now we have, we can come back to the free case history with a last round. Can you give me, okay, you can start whenever you want, from the beginning, right? So we understood your project. Now, as many people told before, now we have to think about how to scale up and to have a bigger impact, and what is the support you need. Each one has 2 minutes, please. Okay. Sayan.
Right. First, I think we definitely need the advanced innovative systems, but with interoperable architecture, because the digitalization is key and crucial to manage the complexity. Our industry, has very fragmented supply chain, opaque global value chain actually, and a lot of extensive subcontracting inside, which these subcontractings are not visible. So we really need to have digitalization to have all the visibility across the value chain. And then, of course, as mentioned before, awareness and capacity building is crucial because people will be running the systems at the end. And then standardized terms and data sets definitely needed, as we also experienced this at our pilots. But these data sets should be simplified to the absolute minimum for more inclusive and effective system, because now all these sustainability initiatives and multiple audits, data entries for same purpose are really adding huge complexity to supply chain. And this complexity burdening the supply chain actually, especially the small companies with limited resources. Yes. And then we welcome the legislation because legislation is important. We have well seen that the voluntary approaches were not enough for the change we need. But you know, all this legislation needs to be on global strategy to ensure sustainable, to ensure fair competition. And lastly, I can add, all this will imply further financial burden on supply chain. And there has to be some support mechanism in place, especially at this very challenging trading and credit-tight environment. And our industry really needs to move from transactional to the partnerships, because our industry is mostly sacrificed the long-term partnerships or, you know, rewarding sustainability or traceable initiatives over margins. So that's the biggest challenge. So we need to real collaboration, two-way collaboration.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief. And the key bit of advice I think I could say is that we're a bunch of smart people in this room here, but go and speak to the supply chain. I think it's all well and good having ideas in our head, principles. Go and validate them, go and test them. So go to the supply chain and go, we have these ideas, will they work for you? Some will say yes, some will say no. Just capturing that, understanding that, so that then you can work towards a system which, while it might not be perfect for the individual, it's much more suited to the overall supply chain, and therefore it helps to develop a system which, like you said, it's not a burden. It's trying to reduce that, because traceability does come at a cost, be it time and money. We should try and look toward design a system which minimizes that as much as possible.
Thank you. Rossella?
As I said, as all we know, there is no transparency without traceability. So the first challenge is to equip all products with a specific ID. And the second one is to collect all the data regarding the supply chain related to those ID. And the third step is to certify this process by third party. So for the first challenge, it's important to have a data carrier, like a QR code, for example. That, for example, we are using this one for our digital product passport. The second one is to have in place, it's not easy, a platform, supplier management platform or value chain platform, where we collect all the information regarding the raw material, regarding the process, regarding the supplier, the certification, and so on. And I would like also to highlight that there is not a project, it's a process where all the departments in the company, key department, needs to be connected every day, and in a very holistic and 300-degree approach.
Thank you, Rossella. Thank you. I feel that, yes, everything was really interesting. I feel that we have a lot of things to do now, because there is the starting point from a long journey. I hope that at the end of the journey, the final consumers will be able to pay more for this kind of products, and before that the consumer will be able to read all this kind of data, because if we produce a so huge amount of data, then they must be able to read and to decide according with the results of those information. So I thank you. You are very great, because we are perfectly on time. I thank you, Seiyan, Thomas, Rossella, and Marco. And I feel that I hope that you find it interesting in this session. And now you invite to the lunch.
Thank you very much, Carlo, and thank you to all the panelists. Right, it was perfectly on time. And thank you for a very insightful discussion about how to harness the potential of innovation and advanced technologies like blockchain to enable traceability, transparency, but also to create the incentives we need for having sustainable products or markets with claims that can be trusted. So very interesting discussion. Now, let me also mention, as we have been seeing on screen, some of the pilots that have been done as part of the project. The products on display, the clothing on display, they are clothing that has been traced as part of the project with the UNEC traceability and transparency standard, and using, for some of them, also blockchain technology to enable data exchange all along the value chain. And I would like to thank Tiziano Guardini and Città dell'Arte's team for an amazing exhibition of this clothing that I think it's important to see that this is possible, that there is a testimony that it is possible and it's doable, and the clothing is here. Okay, so we break for lunch and we resume back at 2:30. So enjoy your lunch, which is served on the amazing terrace outside. Thank you.